Hello, I'm Joseph Colaneri, Music Director for the Glimmerglass Festival, and this is Keeping Time with Colaneri. In this mini-course, we will take an overview of the art of opera from its beginnings through the present day. We'll examine its forms and talk about the voices, orchestra, and most of all, the music. We'll also examine and demystify some of opera's terminology along the way. I hope this series might serve as an introduction for those new to the art form and as a review for experienced operagoers who might find themselves listening with a new set of ears. The series is presented as 6 short videos. Each video will include a playlist with links that will help illustrate some of the topics and ideas we examine. Please use these links as a guide and a portal for further listening. So, let's enter this fascinating world of storytelling and music. Last time, we explored the full range of the aria in opera and all the expansive forms it can take. Now, let's turn to the first music that we hear as the performance begins, the overture. To understand the genesis of the opera overture, we need to go back in time and examine the state of operatic performance in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Public theaters were coming into vogue after a long period of performances in private royal court theaters. The theater was becoming an important social gathering place, and until 1815, theaters were the only legal places for gambling in the city of Milan. Audiences, not having many other types of entertainment available to them, came to the theater night after night, and many people had already seen and heard a particular opera 30 or 40 times. Without electricity, theaters were also rather brightly lit. There was certainly no darkening of the house lights to signal the start of the performance. And in the pre-pit days, the orchestra sat in full view of the audience, right in front of the stage. As late as the mid-19th century, theater boxes that held patrons were rather like mini salons, important places to see and to be seen. British writer Charles Dickens described it this way: "Everywhere there is nodding and smiling and flirting and waving of fans and handkerchiefs. 2/3 of the performance is drowned out by the murmur of a general conversation. At the entrance of a popular singer, the confused roar of 6,000 voices is instantly hushed. All laughing, coquetting, and iced champagne drinking are broken short." German composer Ludwig Spohr commented this way: "The noise was such that one could hardly hear the music. There was card playing in the boxes and loud conversation everywhere." The theater was quite a different place in those days, so unlike now, when even the sound of the unwrapping of a cough lozenge is enough to get you a downright deadly stare or a loud shh. Perhaps that is why the usual way for an opera overture to start is with a loud orchestral chord to let the audience know that it's time to begin. In many cases, the audience would have taken their seats during the overture, or the sinfonia, as it was known in Italy. Perhaps that is why some opera overtures do not have any melodic themes that you will hear later in the opera itself. The brilliant overture to The Marriage of Figaro by Mozart has not one theme that is heard again in the opera. Rossini's vivacious Overture to the Barber of Seville also shares no themes with the opera that follows. In fact, given the haste with which a number of Rossini's operas were written, the overture might be composed after the opera was complete, or, if there was no time, an overture from another opera by the composer might be used. We have evidence of this in a letter Rossini wrote in response to a young composer's query as to the best time to compose an opera overture. The master composer wrote with his usual wry humor, "Wait until the night before the premiere. Nothing excites your inspiration like necessity, the presence of the copyist who awaits your work, and the urging of the anxious impresario who is pulling out his hair in handfuls. In my time, all the Italian impresarios were bald by the age of 30. I wrote the overture to The Thieving Magpie the day before the premiere in an upstairs room at La Scala, where I was imprisoned by the director and watched over by 4 stagehands who had orders to throw my manuscript from the window page by page to the copyists waiting below. If pages of music were not forthcoming, they had orders to throw me out the window. For The Barber of Seville, I did better. I did not compose an overture, but took one from another of my operas, Elisabetta. The public was very happy. You can hear the overture to Elisabetta, or shall we say, The Barber of Seville, in the playlist that follows the video. Of course, there are overtures that do introduce themes heard later in the operas, and we may turn to the Sinfonia of Bellini's Norma or Wagner's Die Meistersinger to hear this type of overture. Now, composers also began experimenting with preludes in place of overtures. These are short, atmospheric introductions to the operas that set the mood for what is to come and introduce themes that will be heard later in the opera. Examples of this are the preludes to Donizetti's Lucia de Lammermoor, Jules Massenet's Manon, and Verdi's La Traviata, in which Verdi paints a vivid portrait of the heroine Violetta in the prelude to Act 1. Have a listen to these in the playlist that follows. As the 19th century progressed and theaters were able to darken the house before a performance, composers sometimes didn't write overtures or preludes at all, but simply plunged the audience into the middle of the action with an immediate rise of the curtain. You can hear this highly dramatic effect in the openings of Verdi's Otello and Puccini's La Bohème and Tosca. It's a truly exciting musical and dramatic device and would have been unthinkable in the early days of opera. So, the overture, or sinfonia, or prelude, developed in tandem with opera's changes in dramatic and musical style, audience behavior, and the technical advances of theatrical performance spaces, to become an ever more integral part of the operatic form. Next time, join me as we explore the myriad of fascinating voice types that make up the world of the lyric theater. Thanks for listening.